So here's my opinion on this Iran-Saudi agreement that supposedly was brokered by China. I don't think it was brokered by China as much as people think. This has been a couple of years long deal. They've been at the table negotiating, discussing, it largely trying to create some form of peace in the Middle East. And this goes back to the Yemen situation where the Houthi rebels are backed by Iran and the Yemeni government is backed by the Saudis, and they're still fighting in Yemen. This is a big point of contention between the two countries. Incidentally, this didn't come up in this agreement. Really, all this agreement was for them to open their embassies for communication, have bilateral talks between the two countries, and I'm all for that. That's a good thing. Having communication leads to peace. And this may be the first step towards a larger peace process. But as I said, nothing is in this deal that stops Iran from backing the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and nothing is stopping Saudi Arabia from leaving Yemen and backing out of what is kind of a quagmire for them in Yemen fighting. That fighting is going to continue. And we have to remember that Saudi and Iran have had representatives in each other's countries' embassies before, and it still led to breakdowns between the two countries. The big thing the reason I say China didn't play as much of a part is this has been a 2-year process, and actually the major brokers since the beginning, other than Iran and Saudi themselves, who they initiated. It was Iran and Saudi that started this process. It wasn't anybody else. China didn't come and say, you two get along, or we aren't going to play nice with you, or whatever, or we're gonna put these sanctions or whatever. China came on well after a lot of the processes and discussions were done. It was actually Oman and Iraq that brokered nearly all the deal. The only thing that was remaining was signing the deal, and China, being a major supplier and major customer to both Iran and Saudi Arabia, leveraged their economic might and their economic pull to kind of insert themselves into this scenario, into this deal, to say, look at us, we're on the international stage brokering deals. And there is no skin off Iran or Saudi's nose. So they're like, yeah, sure, come on in, take some pictures. Iran especially wants to make China look better than the US. But the reality is this deal was not brokered by China. China was just there at the end, signing a bunch of papers and shaking hands for pictures. Really, the credit goes to the 4 other countries, Oman, Iraq, Iran, and Saudi, for brokering this deal amongst themselves. On top of that, simultaneously, Saudi Arabia and the total kingdom, the administration, whatever you want to call it, of Mohammed bin Salman, has expressed within days of this signing valid and very poignant concerns about Iranian nuclear capabilities and ballistic missile development. And because of that, they have come to the U.S. for security guarantees to try and counter the military strength that Iran has bolstered recently with some of its backing from Russia, et cetera. So bottom line is, this deal is great. Peace is great. Communication is great. I hope this leads to broader peace in the Middle East for these two countries, and they can work out their differences and end what is taking place in Yemen and work together to potentially help Syria get through what it's going through, or get rid of their terrible leadership in Syria. But with that being said, this isn't as big a deal on the regional or even the international stage as it's being made out to be. China was there, they shook hands, they played really no part in this deal, and nothing's really changing from a kinetic standpoint other than they're going to open some embassies and talk a little more, and we've seen that not cease any kind of warlike behavior between those two countries in the past. Actually, weirdly, this hitches China's wagon to what could become a greater potential problem. The U.S., with its far greater military arm to reach out into the Middle East and effect change, and its larger economic might in the region at the time, struggled. The U.S. struggled there. And now, because China is essentially hitching its wagon to this Iran, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Saudi situation by saying they brokered deals. They now have a vested interest in ensuring this takes place, because any kind of breakdown between Saudi and Iran is going to make China look like their deal wasn't as strong or as solid as initially, foreclosed by all of the countries. So basically, China is somewhat taking ownership of this Iran, Saudi, Syria problem with Yemen, etc. And I'm not sure they're prepared to deal with that in a regional influence type of way. So this could all blow up in China's face as well. Again, I don't want it to. I don't want the Saudis and the Iranians to be fighting wars. I don't want Israel getting drug into or starting wars with Iran with the aid of Saudi intelligence, as they've done in the past. But now China is here saying, we fixed it. Yeah. If we had a nickel for every country that tried to fix the Middle East, we'd probably have a larger GDP than any other country in the world.